Hello, everybody. This is Mary Hollywood at the Crossroads. Today's topic that I want to discuss is the reopening of the economy that seems to be taking place across the country. So many governors are crying out, to get people back out on the streets, back working, and cases are not dropping. Deaths are not dropping. And there was something going around on Facebook and Twitter that these are the arguments that people who support this idea are throwing around. So I want to answer these questions that they're posing. But with that, I need the help of my ladies of direction. So in this segment, I'm going to have the help of my two friends, Kimberly and Victoria, so that we may discuss these ideas so that we can find, common ground, common sense to see how we can address all the issues that the coronavirus pandemic brings forth. Welcome to my friends, Kim and Victoria. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to read the post, okay? You guys ready? All right. For the people crying for the country to remain shut down, answer these questions. Number one, how many children should starve so that maybe you don't get sick? How many minors should be sexually assaulted because they are quarantined with their abusers so that maybe you don't get sick? How many families must go bankrupt so that maybe you don't get sick? How many business owners should lose everything they've worked for so that maybe you don't get sick? How many people are you comfortable with committing suicide from hopelessness and financial ruin so that maybe you don't get sick? How many people have to lose their jobs, their health insurance, their life savings, and most importantly, the precious time with their family and loved ones they will never get back so that maybe you don't get sick? The fact remains that the risk of catching the virus is no more than catching the flu. And the risk of dying from this virus in the US is about 0.2%. Those who are high risk can quarantine themselves. More people will die from this shutdown than the virus. We have much bigger things to worry about than catching this virus. Also, remember this: if the TV news had never told you to be afraid of this, you wouldn't have. You'd have never given it a thought. You'd have gone about your life as usual along with everyone else. You'd likely have never known there was a virus at all. You'd have thought that this was just another type of flu. So remember that all your fear and panic exists because you were told to live in fear and panic. Okay, so this is the question. These are the questions that these people are posing and their arguments for reopening the economy. And I remember that when this first broke out back, I think it was back in January when the buzz started in the media. And I remember that I was like, I'm going to ignore this for a while because I know the media does live off of fear, right? They always make things worse and, try to make things bigger than what they are so that they can have more viewers, right? Because that's what we look for. But after a while, and after you started seeing the numbers and what was really happening, I was like, okay, well, maybe we should pay attention to this. And my first counter to this little rant is that she asked, so that maybe you don't get sick. And when it comes to the COVID-19, it's not maybe if you don't get sick, it's maybe if you don't die. So what are your thoughts in regards to this, Victoria?
Well, it's interesting that the question just asks you. It's not just you, I'm not just thinking of myself not getting sick. I'm thinking of the person who's asking the question. What about that person and their family? They could get sick. They could, there's a risk and fears on both sides of that. I can be afraid that I'm going to get sick. I can be afraid that somebody I love is going to get sick or die. And I can also be afraid for people losing their income and for businesses and for the economy. I can be both those things. I can be afraid of both of those things. I can be concerned about people living with their abusers and look for solutions for that are something less extreme than let's just, risk dying.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. If you replace all those so you don't get sick, so people don't die, it's a different question.
Exactly. Kim, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that it's a big topic. What the questions aren't asking is how can we address those problems and issues without putting people's lives at risk. There are abusers abusing every day with or without the virus. And then the other main thing is, what is our government doing to address these questions and these concerns? They're not doing nothing, basically, and they're throwing money at the problem at the highest level and letting it kind of trickle down, which isn't really addressing the systemic issues of this problem. So I'd like to ask, if I could reword those questions, like, how is the government who is imposing these rules and who dropped the ball when it came to containing this virus and this pandemic, what are our representatives going to do to protect us? And that is financial, that is informational. Where are the facts coming from? Why is there no clear message? And it is tearing this country apart, because you have the openers and then you have the closers, and they're both operating from different points of truth. Yes, there is a pandemic. Yes, there is another pandemic, which is the financial ruin that's happening. So there has to be a system invented to help people. Like the National Guard could be delivering food, a month's supply of food to every community, so that they aren't hungry. Rents can be canceled. The banks that we bailed out in 2008 could be coming to our rescue to bail us out with credit cards that they're making. I mean, it's a can of worms. Yeah. But I feel like they're getting left off the hook, and we're the ones on the hook that are going to sacrifice our lives and other people's, our loved ones' lives, and the most vulnerable in our society that will go through those same things if they're self-quarantined, like. So anyway, that's where I'm coming from.
No, I think you both hit the nail on the head, because the point is, children are starving every day in America. These minors are being sexually assaulted every day in America. So now that these things, I always say, like, COVID is a blessing in disguise, because it's just painting such a clear picture of the kind of society that we have built for ourselves, that we have allowed to exist, that is just crumbling to the ground. And it's clear to see, if you look around the world, countries that did everything in their power right away to save as many people as they could, and they're already starting to reopen without danger. And here in America, again, for political reasons, political games are putting our lives at stake in order to save their asses. If I always say, okay, you want to open up the economy, okay, where are the tests? Where's the contact tracing? You know what I mean? Where are the all the measures that we need to take in order to do that? Let's do that. Right now, like you said, the bailouts bailed out all the corporations. They got trillions, and everybody got a check for $1,200. Really?
The questions are what's wrong with the questions I hear a lot of people asking, and the answers that I hear a lot of people saying. It's always either or, right? It's always these two options, which, you know, like our presidential candidates, and neither one is good. What happened to creativity, ingenuity? You know, I come from a entrepreneurial background, so and creative artists. We see problems as opportunities to invent something new. You know? Why is it that our only options are to let people die or to let businesses go? You know, there's nothing in between that. There's no solution other than that. These are our only options. No, this is an opportunity for us to think outside of that box and to create new systems and new ways of making a living. You know, more people can work from home. We create, you know, the Green New Deal kind of jobs, and people can do these things from home. There's so much stuff you can do from home. And we can start getting help to these people who need it now that we see that they need it. Now that the attention is being brought to people who are being abused and people who don't have clean water and can't wash their hands. This is all an opportunity for us to look at these problems in a different way and to come up with new solutions instead of just asking, you know, either or.
I don't know how we hold our leaders accountable in this instance, but there's definitely got to be a way, a new way.
I think that, for example, with the bailout, a lot, it's like the progressive movement is discussing how everybody did a lot of grandstanding, but nobody actually did anything meaningful. Like AOC and Bernie, you know, they shouted, but yet they went ahead and they voted for it. And I understand, I'm not like, imagine putting ourselves in their shoes. Imagine being the ones that, you know, the entire political media industrial complex is going to label as the ones that withheld that check for the American people. But I think that until somebody has the guts to say no, like, we're going to do something this time for the people, and take that heat and explain why, you know, go to the media and say, listen, I know you're going to make me out to be a criminal and you're going to destroy my reputation, but this is why I did it, because this is a farce. We're trying to end this income inequality that exists in America and in the world. And we just extended that for I don't know how many decades, because we just made the 1% richer. We left nothing for the people. These problems are systemic, right? The fact that they're crying, you know, people want their jobs back so they can have their insurance back. Since, in what country should our health be tied to an insurance that's going to deny the care that we need? Why isn't healthcare a human right? Right? Like, why is a place, not just Flint, Newark, New Jersey, back in South Carolina, there's places that have no clean water, and everybody's making cute little videos, washing their hands, singing funny songs, and people can't wash their hands because they're going to get sick from it. So, like you said, I don't know what's it going to take. It's going to take people with courage. People with courage to go against what's popular or against this narrative of the media, like these bullies that we have, these gatekeepers that keep the people quiet and down, and we just take it, we accept it, because if we don't, we're screwed. It's like, I'm tired of being held hostage.
I mean, you talk about the narrative, and we need to keep telling the truth. It's just like you say, and it's not just us that needs to tell the truth. I watched a Q&A on Facebook Live with Jessica Skrain, who is running for Senate in Delaware. And she talked about the bailouts, and what she was saying is that the Democrats aren't messaging what's happening in, with these bailouts. They're not going to the news and saying, I'm basically being held hostage. It's not that the Republicans are doing what they're doing. It's not just that. It's that the Democrats aren't coming out and talking about, how they're powerless, to help us. They need to message, they need to tell the truth about what is happening. And for whatever reason, they're not. There needs to be more truth telling, and we need to, it's like that those questions, they're not telling the whole story. We need to be told the whole story. And COVID just keeps showing us things that are happening that I feel like people don't want to look at it. They don't want to see the ugliness. They don't want to see the dead bodies in the corridors of the hospitals. The news isn't reporting, these images, the mass graves in New York. It's frightening. I just think the more we tell the truth, the more we realize that we need solutions, because we have big problems.
But I think the problem is that, some news are and some aren't. And it's so bipolar. Like you have MSNBC, they will go ahead and show the corpses. And then you have Fox News and say, that's a lie. And they're just, making a political stunt, showing these things because they're not telling the truth.
There is no vocal opposition coming from our leaders, but there is in the media. Like the thing about MSNBC is they're just making it about Trump and his failure and everything, and they're not offering any solutions. And the politicians are hiding behind that. They're like, look at how terrible Trump is. He handled it so terribly, but they did too. And nobody's out front speaking on the almost 30 million people unemployed without healthcare now, and their family members. They're so afraid of addressing that elephant in the room. Neither side are really addressing it.
Because they're both to blame.
Exactly. And they both have the solution available to them. And they were still, now they're complaining, now the Republicans are complaining about unemployment being more than people are making per hour. And that's a problem. So they'd rather stay home. That's what we want. We want people to stay home and be okay and not suffering. So what is wrong with that scenario? It doesn't serve the business interests, and these billionaires will not make money unless the people are out there working for them to make the money. So we are in a conundrum. We are at a crossroads, and anyway, that was my thought about the opposition.
The point is, when are we going to stop to just think about ourselves? And when we're going to start thinking about, like we are in a society and we have to live well together. And for me personally, like my life has been turned upside down because of COVID. My husband suffers from a lung condition. If he catches this virus, it could be deadly. So to us, it's very, very serious. But look at how, for example, me, maybe I'm okay, right? It wouldn't affect me. But if I come home and bring the virus home to him, then that can be a problem. So it's like we have to, they said, if you're high risk, stay home and be safe. But it's not as simple as that. This virus, people are asymptomatic. So they could be carrying it. They could be infecting people and not know it, right? It's like, think back of the HIV crisis back in the 80s. There are so many examples that we can give in regards to this. So this is something that we have to stop and think about others, how we are in this together. If somebody is suffering and not doing well, then we cannot be doing well. because in order for everything to function, everyone has to be doing good. When Democrats they put all their eggs, they're putting all their eggs in the Trump basket, right? Everything is against Trump. And this is what infuriates the right and makes them rile up, instead of talking about the things that we can all agree. Like, we're all like 30 million people unemployed. Like, we can come together under that, right? Come up with solutions. 30 million people without health insurance. I'm sure we can come up with something, a solution out. And we have, like both of you, we have the solutions, just a matter of enacting them.
Definitely was no cohesive plan for the country. It was left up, the governors were on their own, which is, you know, they do have the power to shut down a state, but there was no guidance. And so every governor had different approaches. Mm-hmm. And so like in Michigan, the governor there, that's where a lot of the protests are starting, because she went to the real extreme. Like, no, it's not okay to not be able to buy seeds if you're feeling like the apocalypse is upon us and you want to plant some food. You should be able to plant some food. We're lucky in California. I could do that. I could start a garden or whatever. So I think the fracturing of the states with no cohesive leadership in Washington, I'm seriously worried for the unity of this country. I mean, this could certainly send us into quadrants becoming, which is what's happening. The governors on the West Coast are banding together. The governors on the South, and it could ruin the United States, because nobody's working together. Everybody's operating as an island. And that's destructive to unity.
Absolutely.
I think that I feel like we have to raise our consciousness as people to realize that what happens to one person happens to all of us. And that anything that divides us is dangerous to us. So there's an ideology that we have to stop ascribing to, us and them, right? Trump or Biden, Democrat or Republican, progressive or centrist. We need to get back to, like Mary says, that we are all people and that we all have the same basic needs. And what is telling us that more than COVID? Mm-hmm. What is equalizing us more than this threat? And if we can't come together against this threat, what can we come together for? Mm-hmm. I'm really, it's such an opportunity for us to finally get this. And I thought, this is the universe telling us, this is the plot twist, right? This is the part in the movie where we all come together and we fight, our common enemy. And we're still, we're still fighting each other.
Watching it all.
Yeah. I'm just astounded.
Yeah. So it's so important for us to take a step back, to look at the facts instead of attacking one another. We should be asking, okay, so what do we need in order to open back up? And let's fight for these things. We're spending this trillions that we bailed out corporations now, could have been trillions invested in testing, antibody testing, contact tracing, things, masks, right? So that we can organize, the support. Who are the people that have to stay home in quarantine because they are susceptible? Let's make sure that they have everything that they need. Who are the people that are young and healthy and can go out? What do they need to stay healthy and strong in order to start moving this along? It's like no common sense. Nobody is talking about these things. It's just attacks, political attacks. Again, political games. That's why everyone's sick and tired and people are freaking out. But again, let's go back to those questions. Like, what kind of a society, what kind of culture have we been feeding that will give somebody the idea to commit suicide because of financial ruin? You know what I mean? Like, what are we putting, like, what kind of God are we praising of our material gains and possessions that if we lose it, we are nobody? You know what I mean? Like, life's not worth living. People lose their jobs every day. People lose their businesses every day. That's not a reason for you to give up your life. We cannot be held hostage again for something like this. We have to change our values, rechange them, right? Get our values back to what's really important. And I think that COVID is doing this perfectly. People are sitting in their mansions complaining, you know what I mean? Like that they feel like they're in prison. So what's all that worth? It's worth nothing, right? I'm here in my little studio apartment, and amid all my difficulties, my conscience is clean. I'm happy. I have my family. So I think that we have to get those values back and appreciate everything that's real, those things that they can never take away from us. You know what I mean? Like our integrity, our human value.
And I think that's the key to finding solutions, is to stop and reflect and not react out of fear, and try to listen to each other, and to look at these situations and these stories and learn from them. It's time to think about things in a different way. The way that we were thinking was not making us happy and led us to the situation. So how do we think differently? How do we see things differently? How do we treat each other differently? And this is an opportunity to do that, rather than, go back to the way things were.
Absolutely. So now we really have to think of how we can move forward together. As we stand at the crossroads of COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic, we have to understand that it's real. This virus is real, but the struggles and the failures that are arising from it are real as well. So we have to, instead of fighting each other, we have to come together and find solutions, the real solutions that will safeguard our population, our neighbors and our families, and our country, our livelihood, whatever that may be. So let's think of a new way, a new path, and I will meet you guys again at the crossroads. In Hollywood.